Insight development. All right, as you know, I like to collect my insights, and every time I have a thought that I think is kind of sideways, I record it, put it away, I file it, and I bring them back on occasions just like this. Today's insight, Gabriel, is called "We Are Disasters Waiting to Happen." I know it's a little bit of a gloomy topic, and the insight itself is a bit cynical. You will see in a second, you'll hear it in a second. But I chose this one specifically because I know you have a philosophical mind, and I thought it would be very interesting to have this conversation with you. So let's listen to my insight first, and then we'll talk about it. What are human beings? We all just desperately trying to survive. Every day facing countless obstacles and adversity, and also enduring countless assaults on our mental health, physical health. And so that's what we all share in common, is that we are kind of a petri dish, or just a cocktail of disasters waiting to happen. Did you get my point, or do I have to elaborate on that?
No, yeah, I get it. I don't know. I think it's a bit exaggerated. I don't think that, especially us, privileged people aren't really living, extreme life or death situation every single day. I mean, maybe if you look at Ukrainians right now, or the people in Yemen, I think it would be a different story. But I do agree that life is hard, and you have to face a lot of hardship in your life, whether it be physical or mental. But I don't necessarily think. I think we're moving up, because I think people live better lives today than they did like 100 years ago, or
Well, that's certainly true physically. Like our longevity has increased and people are living longer, but we also have way more mental health crisis than we ever did before. At least it's recorded now. Maybe it was unrecorded before.
That's what I think. I think it's just we're developing a lot more like neuro studies, and we're understanding a lot more mental health. Before, you would just call kids like, they have a low attention span, they're very agitated, they get agitated quickly, they have anger issues, and now we link that to ADHD, or perhaps even on more serious cases like bipolar disorder or different types of mental.
But isn't it like, wasn't it Schopenhauer? I believe he was the German philosopher, Arthur Schopenhauer, who said, life is a valley of tears, and the only way to escape from this harsh reality is through like escapisms, love, just distracting yourself from this fact. And so isn't any happiness that we eke out in life just sort of kind of a distraction from the fact that we're living in a hostile environment, the world, and everybody's out to get you, everybody's got their hand in your pocket. I mean, we're animals, and nature is hostile, and we're animals living in a natural world, and it's a hostile environment. Wouldn't you agree?
Not necessarily. I don't think people are out to get you. Like, I think you might have some bitter people in the world, but when you go out, you're not out there trying to ruin everybody's day for your benefit, unless you're like a really evil person. I think most of the time you want everyone to, you want people's best interests in your heart, and I don't think that speaks true for everybody.
Is it our, this brings me back to the conversation I had with your mom and my wife, the beautiful Shelley. We were talking about, she thinks that there are some evil people out there, as you said, that are among us, and we have to be careful. And our job in life is to kind of tread carefully and avoid those people. And if we can, we'll have a good, happy life. But I said, no, I don't think that's the case. And I think we are all capable of being evil people. And all it takes is kind of the wrong day and the right situation, and it'll come out of us. And so our challenge is not to avoid the bad people, but the challenge is not to trigger any person from bringing that out of them. And so, I mean, isn't life more precarious than what you're making it seem like?
Yeah, but then you would describe sort of like animalistic feet, like we have a lot of human like animal nature, and that we, you know, no matter what, even if we try to be elegant, we try to be royal. At one point, we're animals, and we'll just eventually, it's possible at least to go back to those roots. Um,
I agree, man. We can
but I
suppress
think
our
I think that
animalistic nature, but it can also be activated.
but I
And
think
and
that opens
so
up a can of worms then, because then that would excuse people from like beating their wives and people being very misogynistic, and I don't think that's excusable because of oh, we're
but you know how
animals.
like people like in the schoolyard with young kids, you respect kids who are kind of confident in themselves and they have a high opinion of themselves, so you respect them. But if someone comes along in the schoolyard that's insecure and doesn't really respect themselves, that person is likely to trigger that sort of that dark side in other people, and then they'll make themselves vulnerable to them. And so aren't we just constantly in a struggle? Like, what happens if we're down and depressed, and now we're going around triggering everybody to dump on us? Isn't that sort of create an avalanche of negative events?
It could. I mean, I think people too are, like you said, like they use escapism to sort of avoid that. Like people play video games, people do, drink alcohol and things like that to avoid that, which I think is healthy to a certain point. It shouldn't be used excessively, but if you're playing video games once a night to sort of escape the fact that you have work tomorrow just for an hour, I think it's healthy, and I think it's good to sort of take your mind off things once in a while.
Well, I'm glad to hear your youthful perspective on this, because maybe my view is too cynical. And I remember one time I was working at Pickering College, and there was another teacher, and I was all happy-go-lucky. And and the teacher said to me, I think I've been kicked around a little bit more than you. And so I've become more cynical in my worldview. And I think maybe I'm there now, that life has kicked me around a bit, and you're optimistic and idealistic, and maybe we can meet in the middle, or I can learn from you. All right, moving right along.